Let's take a quick look here at variable length argument lists. You've seen that that's exactly what printf does. Printf takes in multiple arguments, but we never know how many there will be. It depends on what's in that format string as to how many variables are going to be required to fill that thing out. So that gets a little strange to be able to code that and call a function not knowing how many parameters are going to be passed in. First of all, you have to pound include the standard arg.h at the top of your program, and then there's 4 different macros that we use. Those macros, the VA list and start, arg, and end, are all defined in that standard arg.h, the way they actually function inside your particular implementation. The VA list is used to create a special kind of variable, and that's var name. So VA list is just a type like any other, but it creates var name so that it will point to where all these things are located in memory. Then VA start, we pass it the variable that we just created, the var name, and something I called head on here, which is a piece of data that we know is right next to where this parameter list is. And I'll show you that in a sample piece of code here in just a second. Then we use VA arg, and again, that variable list name, and the type that we want to get out of there. We have to know what these things are, if they're integers or floats or doubles or whatever. So we have to know what they are so that we know how many bytes of data to read out of this var name list. And that's why printf needs to know if it's a float or a decimal or a string so that it understands how many bytes it needs to read for each of its variables. And then when you're all done, you use the VA end to clean up this special little piece of code that you set out there, this special variable called var name. So let's look at that. I've got a piece of code here called vargs.c. And there we include the standard arg header and the standard IO header. And this is a little function just called average. It's going to take in a number of items to average out, and then it takes the values themselves out here. Okay, so we'll say that there's going to be 5 numbers, and then we actually put the 5 different numbers. Down here, here's how we set it up. We have a double sum. So that's a large floating point, which is going to be all of these added together, and we just have X for a counter. Now here's our VA list, the macro to create the argument list. There's VA list, and arguments is what we called the thing. And here's a VA start. The VA start takes this new type, this new variable, arguments, and num. Num is this guy up here, this integer that came in. VA start uses that to find out where this is in memory, and then create the pointer to the first argument that's right behind that, because these were passed on the stack up here. This ellipsis, this ... tells this function that it's going to be a variable number of arguments coming in. So watch out for them, and that we will have to use VA list and start and so on to read that. So that's a little placeholder right there. That's important to have that there. Now here's our loop, and here we're going to go from 0 to the number of variable arguments that are coming in, and we'll make the sum equal to the existing sum plus the argument itself. And we're going to treat all these as doubles. All these numbers coming in are doubles, so every time we'll pull a double in. Now you can see that printf would have to figure out from the format string how many percent signs there were and know how many items to read and what they each would be if it's going to read an integer or a float or a character or something. This is the kind of place where it does that. And then VA end cleans up the arguments variable that we created up here. And then we just return the sum divided by the number. Now I don't have this initialized right down here because this first value is supposed to be num. 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, so we'll just put 4 in there. And here we only have 3 variables coming in, so we'll put a 3. That's the way that should be set up. So remember, this one's going to be num, and then how many corresponding to that, how many doubles that we're going to send in. And it's going to add those up and average them out for us. Totally useless, but it shows you how to do the variable argument list. Let's save this, and let's go to our compile window and compile and link it. There we go, and let's run it. There you go. And you can do the math to see if that's right, but I bet it is. So that's all there is to it. That's all it's supposed to print out is our 2 floats. And that's what it did, and that is how to take in variable arguments into your own program. Variable length argument lists.